This video, I'm going to show you guys how to combine layers from different images. And how I'm going to show you is I'm going to bring some people into this interior image that we have here. This is something that you're going to have to do a lot when you're in the final stages of creating your perspectives and your renderings of your projects. You're going to want to bring figures into your models to show human scale and add interest to your photos of your models. So I'm going to pop over to another image here that I have. And these are my people that I'm going to work with. So what I want to do first is I want to, instead of having this as a background, I want to create this image into its own layer. So I'm simply going to unlock my background here, and that's going to create a layer out of these people. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to click and drag them over into my other image and drop them here, and that's going to put them into my image. So that's really the simplest way to drop layers into other images, is to just click and drag and hover over the image that you want to bring them into, and it will drop them right there on your thing. So now I have a layer with my people on it, and then I have my background layer, which is my interior image. So there are many ways that you can, I guess, cut out these people, trim these people out, and make them look like they should be in this picture rather than having, this white outline around them. So the first thing that you can do is you can use the Marquee tools up here, particularly the rectangular Marquee tool and the elliptical Marquee tool. These would be good if you're wanting to just, let's say, single out one of these people. I'm going to Control, Cut, Paste, and that makes a separate layer of this woman here. And I can kind of move these guys out of the way and just work with her rather than, messing with all these other people. But it still gives me a lot of white to work with if I'm trying to trim all that off. Same with the elliptical Marquee tool. I might be able to get a pretty close, cut of her, but it's unlikely that that's going to help when I have, in the instance I have a person. If you had a basketball or an orange or something that was circular that you were wanting to cut out, this would work actually really well. But in this case, it's probably not my best option. So, and as you can see here, when I select these Marquee tools, I get this little options panel up here, and what I'm going to look at the most is, I'm going to go back to where we were in the beginning. The most kind of important ones are going to be these little square icons right here, and those are going to allow me to manipulate my selection that I have already created. So right now I'm just on the regular old adding a selection. I want to just make a simple selection. So when I change these icons, this is going to allow me to manipulate what I've selected. So this here, the two filled in squares, is going to allow me to add to my selection. So say I wanted to add this guy into the selection as a whole. If I wanted to select him and make it overlap with my current selection, it's going to create a new selection that includes both of my people that I wanted. Now, if I wanted to take him away, but I didn't want to lose my entire selection, I would click on this third one with the filled and the empty square, because that's going to allow me to subtract the selection. And you can see when I switch to those different icons, my cursor actually has a plus and a minus sign, and then it would have an X for this one here, and I'll show you what that does too. So if I wanted to subtract this selection, I would simply just hover over what I want to get rid of, and it's going to take away the selection that I have previously made. And then one more thing is this tool here, and this is going to allow me to intersect with selections that I have made. So say now I only want to select her head. So if I do that here, it's going to only select what was originally there in the selection that I have now made. So this works really similar to the subtraction tool, but it won't allow you to select any additional space. It only allows you to cut and do what has already been selected in your image. So that's kind of how those work with this tool, and I'll show you how they work with the Lasso tools as well, because it's going to be a little bit more detailed in this video at least. So I'm going to remove that selection, and I'm going to move down here to my lasso tools. And my lasso tools are also selection tools, but they're more of a freehand selection, and you can kind of see this little tutorial here showing you how that works. But in this bar, I have the lasso tool, I have the polygonal lasso tool, and I have the magnetic lasso tool. And I'm going to start with the lasso tool just because that's one of the most common ones. You can also press L on your keyboard, and that's the shortcut to lasso. And I'm just going to freehand draw around this person that I have here. This requires a pretty steady hand. Unfortunately, I do not have the steadiest hand, so using this is not my strong suit. This is not normally my go-to, but if you are someone that has a really steady hand, then this is going to be something that allows you to freehand cut around, you know, certain objects within your images in Photoshop. So you can see I kind of missed this top portion of her head right here. So this is where these tools up here would come in handy, because I just want to add to my selection where her head is. So that would now include that top little bump of her hair. So same with if I wanted to take away some of this selection. I came really far out here on her skirt. I want to take that away. A lot down here with her shoe. So you guys see how those kind of work in manipulating the selection that you already have. Next is going to be the polygonal lasso tool, and this works really well for things with straight edges. So in the case of our people, it won't be the most effective, but again, I'm just showing you guys the different ways that you can make selections within Photoshop. So you can see I can only make straight lines when selecting around her, but maybe you're wanting to, you know, select a piece of furniture within an image, or you know, something that has all those straight edges. This would be something that would be really effective for that. And you want to make sure that when you hover over the end, that little circle pops up, and that's going to enclose your selection. So tools are the same up here with this one, the adding, the deleting, and the tool that allows you to make a selection based off of what you already have. So the next one we're going to talk about is the magnetic lasso tool. Out of the lasso tools, this one's going to be the most accurate because it uses certain points to guide your selection. And so you can see that it's just kind of landing on her arm and around her person. And so that's going to allow me to make a much more accurate selection. And you don't have to have nearly as steady of a hand for this, because Photoshop works to ensure that you're selecting what you need to be selecting. And so obviously there's going to be some certain sections that you're going to need to go back in and possibly edit. But out of all the lasso tools, this one's probably the most accurate for those kind of odd shapes. Those more, you know, like people shapes and things are going to be a little bit more, I guess, unique in a way. So that's the magnetic lasso tool. Again, same properties up here. We also have the quick selection and the magic wand tool. So I've used the quick selection before in a couple of videos. That's going to be where you just hover over what you want to select. This works really well when you have a very high contrast background. So in this case, we have a white background on these people. And so my quick select is going to work really well to just select my my person. But you can see I still have these little sections in here that I'm going to have to trim out and erase when I, you know, create her into her own layer. So you can see that, you know, that was just as accurate, if not potentially more accurate than the magnetic lasso tool, but I still have these sections that I'm going to have to zoom in and erase from her, you know, from her legs and that kind of stuff. So that's another option as well. And then there's one last way that you can make selections in Photoshop, and that's going to be the magic wand tool. So the magic wand tool selects pixels based on tone and color. So in this case, it would be the most effective for me to use the magic wand tool to select the white background on this. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that white background, and it's going to select everything that was white because it's searching for those pixels that have the same tone and color. If I tried to magic wand select one of my persons here, it would only select something that's the same color and that it sees. So it's not the best tool, again, for, you know, something like this, unless you maybe just wanted to select his pants or you just wanted to select her skirt. But it's going to be efficient for selecting, you know, sections of your image that are all the same color, all the same pixel like you see here. And so I could simply just cut that background out. Now, obviously, that still means that all of my people are on the same layer and it just removed that white background. But you can see the effectiveness of that as well when it comes to selecting certain sections of your image. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to real quick, I'm going to use my quick selection tool just for showing purposes to have this woman cut out here. When you're trying to do something fast and quick, obviously the quick selection tool will work really well. And I, again, like I said, I don't have a really steady hand, so sometimes I struggle with the lasso tools because my hand doesn't stay very still. So, okay, so now I have this lady here, and I want to make her look like she actually belongs in this image rather than just kind of floating. And you know, she looks kind of large in scale for this image, and so I want to, you know, transform her in this space. So you guys can see I have still a little bit of white around her, but that would be something that in the case of working on a project, you would go in with your eraser tool and edit out like so. Whoops. So that's something that you could go through quickly and do. Again, and it's going to kind of take away that white glow around her. But I'm not going to waste my time showing you guys that because that would take a little while, and that's probably one of the more tedious parts of editing a selection that you have made. So I'm going to go to my layers, and I'm going to hide this layer here because I don't really want to see that hovering over in my image anymore. I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I want to see my whole image. So in order to transform this woman that I have now cut out here, I'm just going to press down Control-T, and that's the shortcut to the free transform tool. And I think that she needs to be maybe a little bit smaller. It honestly depends on where you put them standing, because if I move her over here, she looks kind of small in comparison to my image. But if I have her standing back here, like, her head is touching the ceiling, so like that's obviously way too big. So I think that a happy medium is about right here. I might make her a little bit taller. And this is how, like I said, you're going to be able to transform and, you know, manipulate this new layer that you've brought in. And so, you know, you're obviously not going to want to change her. You know, you're not going to want to warp her and do all that kind of stuff. The way I'm doing this is I'm holding down on Control. And it allows me to just move individual points within the selection. And then Shift is just going to allow me to move certain boundaries. It's going to only move one, you know, edge of my selection. So I'm going to go back to what I had originally and leave her like she is because I think that looks the best. And so I have her now in my image. And one more thing I want to show you guys is how to make a shadow, because I know some people that can be kind of challenging, and so I'm going to show you guys a quick little easy way to do that and how to change the opacity of your layers within that. So I want to make a shadow of this lady, and I'm going to assume that I have a light source coming from over here. So I want to make her shadow kind of flow back in behind her. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select her and I'm going to copy and paste, and that's going to duplicate my layer of this woman. And so now what I want to do, since she's on her own layer, I'm going to select her, and that's going to select just her because she's on her own layer as a duplicate. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw over top of her with my brush tool and ensure that my color is set to black. And I'm going to draw over top of her. And again, there's a ton of ways that you can do this, but this is just the way that I have done it and that I've found is the easiest for me. If you guys find another way that works for you, then that's obviously super great and do whatever works best. So right now she's a little dark. She's too dark to be a shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the opacity of this layer. And so since I have her selected, I'm able to mess with the opacity, which is up here right next to our blending drop-down screen. I'm going to change her opacity. And you can see that that makes it look much more like a shadow than what it had originally. And you can go through and you can take an eraser and kind of blend these images or blend these edges and change, you know, the feathered look of that. But as a shadow, once you change the opacity, I think that looks pretty good. So this is the instance now where you're going to want to use your control to manipulate this image to kind of lay down on the floor. So I'm going to hold down on control and edit this to make it look like her shadow is, you know, laying on the floor rather than standing up next to her. So I usually try to connect the feet as close as I can, you know, and kind of make it look like it's falling in behind her, like so. And you can see that for right now, the shadow is on top of her, but a pretty quick way to fix that, I'll move that over just a little bit. Quick way to fix that is to just bring this layer down below my lady here, and you can see that that shadow fell right in behind her and looks pretty accurate. So that's really all I have to show you guys in this video. That's just all of the many ways that you can bring different layers into an image and manipulate them, cut them out, make all kinds of different selections, and add more interest to your images.